Right, but I do have friends in other places. All right, so as you saw last night, Bill O'Reilly went off, saying Americans have no confidence in the ability to protect this country from attacks at the top. Fair and balanced debate on his points coming up next.
Congresswoman Pelosi is an intellectual zombie. No sane person could think Americans' policy toward ISIS has been effective. No sane person could put forth that 65 countries are united to defeat ISIS. It is a myth, a dangerous deceit.
This argument, listen.
What President Obama does not understand is that he has lost all credibility in matters of security. Allowing 10,000 Syrians into America would not endanger us any more than we are already endangered. The bad guys are already here, waiting to do their damage. The signal being sent to the president is, we don't trust you to protect us. So no more generosity to overseas visitors.
Epic talking points. And on it went. Bottom line from O'Reilly, Americans have no confidence in President Obama to keep America safe. What about that? Matthew Littman, political consultant, former speechwriter for Vice President Joe Biden. Rich Lowry, editor for National Review and a Fox News contributor. Gentlemen, good day to both of you.
Hey, Bill.
The polls are in his favor. I'll show those in a moment. First, Rich, start. His point was clear. Is he right?
Well, he's absolutely right. Our pullout from Iraq and our passivity in Syria created the conditions for the rise of ISIS. And the president does not have a serious plan to deal with ISIS. Even many top Democrats are now admitting that. And unfortunately, the only one who won't admit it is the president of the United States, whose ultimate plan still seems to be handing this problem on to his successor.
Sounds like the strategy is stay the course, right? I mean, that's what we've heard so far. And you wonder, Matthew, whether that changes today. The overall question that O'Reilly raises, though, that the American people don't trust the president on security. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that, the ISIS situation is obviously amazingly complicated. In terms of the territory that ISIS has, we've been doing a pretty good job of rolling back that territory. Obviously need to do more. On security here, we have had a bit of a problem with domestic terrorists, not refugees, but domestic terrorists since 2001. That seems to be where the issue lies in this country, and obviously we need to be doing more about that. You have issues like 30 people being shot in Newtown, 20 kids being killed in Newtown, and the gun issues in this country, which are extreme and result in a lot of people dying.
What's that got to do with terrorism overseas and refugees at home?
Well, I think what it has to do with is we're worried about what's happening here, Bill. That's what we're talking about. And the gun violence in this country is a very important issue.
Okay, well, here's what the American people are saying, all right? You ready for this? We asked whether or not the administration's tough enough on ISIS. 65% say not aggressive enough. Here's another one. Islamic terrorists will try to launch attack on U.S. soil soon. Very or somewhat likely. Combined totals are 83%. And that's the argument that's being made by people like O'Reilly and many others. Rich.
Well, what happened, Bill, really is with the beheading of James Foley, you saw the hawkish reflex of the American people kicking in again. And the Paris attacks are obviously a major event in that regard. Paris is not a soft target. The French security services are quite serious, and everyone watched that happen on their TV screen and came to the quite reasonable conclusion, if it happened there, it can happen here.
With regard to refugees, here was the big point last night. It's not about ethnicity, it's not about religion, it's about keeping us safe. And Matthew, you know the Europeans are having a hell of a time trying to figure out who is whom coming across their borders. And they don't have an effective system, even to this day, that is in place. So the concern and the question is then to us, as a country and as a government, how can we do that job better?
So the answer is, Bill, we do that job better because in Europe what they do is people come over on a boat by paying a few $100s and they get into Europe and they get fingerprinted and they go around Europe. In the United States, it takes a couple of years for these refugees to be able to come into the country after an incredibly extensive background check. I know you know all about this, but that takes about 2 years. It's mostly women and children, and we have a much different system than they do in the rest of the world. And that's why I'm saying we need to concentrate more on what's happening in this country than the people that are coming in, than the 10,000 potential Syrian refugees. And Bill, let me also say this.
Orphans and widows, quickly.
Well, look,
we're not going to get 10,000 refugees into this country in the next year. We're lucky if we get 5,000 refugees.
The way our immigration system works, Bill, you don't just let in one refugee and that's the end of it. There's a whole chain migration that follows after that. And what you have to worry about is what we have in Minneapolis, where we've let in a lot of Somali refugees, obviously sympathetic people from a war-torn country, and their children, 60 of them or so, have tried to go and join the jihad overseas. So what you don't want is a self-reinforcing ethnic enclave, and the more numbers you have, the more chance you have of creating this sort of
Gentlemen, I'm
enclaves.
out of time. Rich, thank you. Matt, we'll pick it up again very soon. You
Thanks,
had
Bill.
dozens of Democrats vote with Republicans in the House, and that's something to watch. Thank you, gentlemen. 10 minutes before the hour now. Here's Martha.
So the French president, Francois Hollande, headed to a meeting with President Obama. Here he is moments ago, getting off of his plane at Andrews Air Force Base. He is reportedly going to push the president for more action against ISIS. So how is that going to go in light of the conversation that you just heard? We're live at the White House.